The first sign that something wasn't right came a few weeks into the school year. Ethan came home one afternoon, his face pale and his eyes red from crying. He dropped his backpack by the door and slumped onto the couch without saying a word. That alone was unusual. Ethan was usually full of energy after school, eager to tell me about his day or show me some drawing he'd made in art class. "Hey, buddy," I said gently, sitting down beside him. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. "Ms. Thompson wouldn't let me check my blood sugar before lunch today." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean she wouldn't let you? Did she say why?" "She said it would disrupt class time," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "She told me I should have checked it earlier, but we didn't have time because she kept us late for math practice." I felt a surge of anger bubbling inside me, but I tried to stay calm for Ethan's sake. "Okay, sweetie, thank you for telling me. We'll figure this out." That night, I sat down at my computer and typed out an email to Ms. Thompson. I explained Ethan's condition again, emphasizing how critical it was for him to monitor his blood sugar regularly. I reminded her that skipping checks could lead to dangerous situations, low blood sugar episodes that might result in seizures or worse. I ended the email politely, hoping she'd understand. Her response came the next morning. It was short, almost dismissive. "Ethan knows the rules," she wrote. "He needs to learn discipline." Discipline. For managing a life-threatening illness. My hands shook as I read those words over and over. How could anyone think this way? Managing diabetes wasn't about being disciplined. It was about survival. Every parent of a child with a chronic illness knows that flexibility is key. You adapt, you adjust, and you make sure your kid stays safe no matter what. But Ms. Thompson clearly didn't see it that way. Over the next few days, Ethan grew quieter. He stopped talking about school altogether, which wasn't like him at all. When I asked if everything was okay, he shrugged and changed the subject. Something was off, but he wouldn't open up. I started worrying more, not just about his health, but about how Ms. Thompson's attitude was affecting him emotionally. Then one evening, I noticed something strange. Ethan had left his glucose meter on the kitchen counter, which was odd because he usually kept it tucked safely in his backpack. When I picked it up, I saw scratches along the edges, like it had been handled roughly. "Ethan," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did something happen to your meter?" He froze, standing in the doorway with wide eyes. Finally, he nodded. "Miss Thompson took it away during class yesterday," he admitted quietly. "She said I was using it too much and disrupting everyone. She gave it back at the end of the day." But his voice trailed off. I stared at him, incredulous. Taking away his glucose meter. That was unthinkable. What if his blood sugar had dropped dangerously low while she held onto it? The thought sent chills down my spine. This wasn't just negligence, it was reckless. And yet, when I emailed Ms. Thompson again to express my concerns, her reply was defensive. "Ethan needs to focus on his studies," she wrote. "His constant interruptions are becoming a problem." A problem? My son's health, a literal matter of life and death, was being treated as an inconvenience. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Who did this woman think she was? Didn't she realize the responsibility she had as a teacher? The worst part was watching Ethan internalize her words. He started doubting himself, questioning whether he was asking for too much or causing trouble. One night, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes and whispered, "Maybe Ms. Thompson is right, Mom. Maybe I'm being a bother." My heart broke hearing him say that. No child should ever feel like their needs are a burden, especially not a child who already carries the weight of a lifelong illness. I hugged him tightly, promising him that he wasn't a bother, that he deserved to be cared for and supported. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to get better unless I did something drastic. And then, the unthinkable happened. The fallout from the incident was swift, but it didn't bring the closure I had hoped for. Ms. Thompson's temporary removal from the classroom felt like a small victory, but it wasn't justice. She was placed on administrative leave, while the school district conducted its investigation, but whispers around the school suggested she might return after things died down. The idea of her walking back into that building made my stomach churn. For Ethan, the damage was already done. He became quieter, more withdrawn. Even though a new teacher, Mrs. Peterson, stepped in to take over the class, he struggled to trust her at first. Every time she asked if he needed help or reminded him to check his blood sugar, he hesitated, glancing toward the door as if expecting Ms. Thompson to reappear. It broke my heart to see him so unsure, so guarded. Mrs. Peterson, to her credit, was patient and kind. She reached out to me early on, asking how she could best support Ethan. We met one afternoon in the school library, where she listened intently as I explained his condition and the challenges he faced, not just medically, but emotionally. She promised to create a safe space for him in her classroom, one where he wouldn't feel singled out or judged. Over time, Ethan began to open up again. He started participating in class discussions and even joined a group project with some classmates. Watching him laugh with his friends gave me hope that he could heal, but the scars would always remain. Meanwhile, the community response grew louder. Parents who were outraged by Ms. Thompson's actions organized protests outside the school, demanding accountability. Signs dotted the front lawn. Every child deserves safety, support students with medical needs, and enough is enough. Local news crews showed up regularly, interviewing families and filming the growing crowd. Some parents pulled their children out of the school entirely, unwilling to risk another encounter with Ms. Thompson. Others stayed but vowed to keep a close eye on the situation. Despite the public outcry, the school board dragged its feet. Weeks turned into months, and still no final decision was announced about Ms. Thompson's future. When I called to ask for updates, they gave vague responses, saying things like, "We're reviewing all the evidence," or "These matters take time." It was infuriating. How much evidence did they need? My son's health, and potentially his life, had been put at risk because of her negligence. Wasn't that enough? Eventually, the district released a statement. Ms. Thompson would not be fired but instead transferred to another school where her skills might be better utilized. They cited insufficient evidence to justify termination. Insufficient evidence. Had they forgotten about the thrown-away juice box? The refusal to let Ethan check his blood sugar? The countless times she dismissed his illness as fake? The decision sparked another wave of outrage. Protesters returned to the school, this time angrier than before. Someone launched a petition calling for stricter regulations regarding teachers' handling of students with medical conditions. Within days, it garnered thousands of signatures. Community leaders joined the fight, speaking at town hall meetings and urging the school board to reconsider. Armed with newfound resolve, I reached out to the school board the next morning. I explained the situation in detail, attaching copies of Ethan's medical records and screenshots of the Reddit thread to show how widespread the concern had become. To their credit, they responded quickly, promising to investigate thoroughly. Meanwhile, the story continued to gain traction online. Parents began organizing protests outside the school, holding signs that read "Protect Our Children" and "Medical Rights Matter." Local news stations picked up the story, interviewing families affected by similar issues. The pressure mounted, and within a week, the school district announced that Ms. Thompson would be placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. While this was a step in the right direction, it wasn't enough to undo the damage she'd caused. Ethan still flinched whenever someone mentioned her name, and bedtime conversations often revolved around whether other teachers might treat him the same way. It broke my heart to see him so anxious, so uncertain about trusting adults who were supposed to care for him. But amid the pain, there was also hope. Strangers had rallied around us, reminding me that kindness and solidarity still existed in the world. And though the road ahead wouldn't be easy, I knew we'd gotten one thing right. We'd spoken up. We'd refused to stay silent, even when it felt impossible. Because sometimes, standing up for what's right means taking a stand, even when you're terrified. Let me start by saying this. Before my son, Ethan, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, life felt simple. I mean, sure, parenting wasn't always easy. There were days when I barely had time to sit down, but nothing prepared me for the whirlwind that followed his diagnosis. It changed everything. And not just for him, but for our entire family. Ethan was 8 years old when it happened. One day, he was your typical energetic kid, running around at recess, playing tag with his friends, and coming home covered in dirt and smiles. But then, things took a sharp turn. He started feeling tired all the time. He complained about being thirsty, no matter how much water he drank. Then came the weight loss. Even though he was eating more than ever, something wasn't right. It didn't take long for us to end up in the hospital. The doctors ran tests, and soon we were sitting in a small room while they explained what was going on. Type 1 diabetes, they said. At first, the words didn't sink in. What did that even mean? They handed me pamphlets and diagrams, talking about insulin and blood sugar levels like it was second nature. For me, it felt like learning a new language overnight. The hardest part wasn't the diagnosis itself. It was realizing how much work it would take to keep him safe. Every single thing Ethan ate or did suddenly required planning. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, even snacks had to be measured and timed. His medicine, a tiny vial of insulin and a glucose meter, became as important to him as breathing. Without them, he couldn't function. It was overwhelming. But despite the chaos, we adjusted. Over time, we found a rhythm. Ethan learned how to check his blood sugar levels himself, and I made sure his teachers knew exactly what to do if something went wrong at school. We created a detailed care plan with his doctor's help. It included instructions on when he needed to eat, how to recognize signs of low blood sugar, and what to do in an emergency. I thought we were ready for anything. What I didn't expect was for one of his teachers to completely dismiss his condition and then throw away his medicine. That's right. She tossed it in the trash like it was nothing, like it didn't matter. Before all of this, I trusted teachers. I believed they cared about their students. Maybe I was naive, but I wanted to think they'd look out for kids like Ethan. So when I met Ms. Thompson during back-to-school night, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She seemed pleasant enough. She wore a bright floral dress and greeted everyone warmly. When I pulled her aside to explain Ethan's diabetes and handed her the care plan, she nodded along politely. "Don't worry, Mrs. Carter," she said with a smile. "We'll take good care of him." At the time, I believed her. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. She didn't ask any questions about the care plan. She didn't seem curious about what Ethan needed. Her response felt too quick, almost rehearsed. But I pushed those doubts aside because I wanted to trust her. I had asterisked to trust her. After all, she was supposed to be there to support him. Little did I know, trusting her would lead to one of the most terrifying moments of our lives. As the controversy continued, I found myself reflecting on what it all meant, not just for Ethan, but for other kids like him. Chronic illnesses are invisible, and that makes them easy to dismiss. Teachers like Ms. Thompson see a child who looks normal and assume they don't need special accommodations. But normal doesn't exist when you're managing something as unpredictable as diabetes. Every day is different. Every moment requires vigilance. And every adult in a child's life has a responsibility to understand that. Through it all, Ethan remained resilient. He began seeing a therapist who specialized in helping children cope with anxiety and trauma. Slowly, he started opening up about how Ms. Thompson's actions had made him feel scared, ashamed, and unsure if anyone would believe him. Hearing those words gutted me, but it also strengthened my resolve. No child should ever feel that way, especially not under the care of someone entrusted with their well-being. By the end of the school year, things had settled somewhat. Mrs. Peterson proved to be everything Miss Thompson wasn't: compassionate, understanding, and genuinely invested in her students' success. Ethan thrived under her guidance, earning praise for his creativity in art class and his teamwork during science projects. Seeing him smile again reminded me why we'd fought so hard. But the memory of Miss Thompson lingered, a shadow over an otherwise bright chapter in Ethan's life. Her actions served as a painful reminder of how easily authority figures can abuse their power, and how important it is to hold them accountable. Though she was gone from our lives, her impact remained, shaping us in ways I never could have imagined. Today, Ethan is doing better, at least as well as an 8-year-old can after going through something so challenging. He's still the same sweet, curious boy I've always known, but there's a newfound resilience in him that wasn't there before. It's subtle, like the way he confidently raises his hand in class to ask for a bathroom break when he needs to check his blood sugar, or how he calmly explains his diabetes to friends who ask about it. These small moments remind me of how far he's come, and how much we've grown together as a family. Mrs. Peterson has been a godsend. She doesn't just tolerate Ethan's needs, she embraces them. At the beginning of the school year, she held a brief session with the class to explain diabetes in simple terms, emphasizing that it's not contagious and that supporting Ethan is part of being a good friend. The kids responded beautifully, often reminding each other to include him in activities or asking if he needs help during snack time. For the first time in months, Ethan feels like he belongs, a feeling no child should ever be denied. Still, the scars remain. Some nights, I catch him staring out the window, lost in thought. When I ask what's on his mind, he shrugs and says, "Just thinking." I know those quiet moments aren't empty. They're filled with memories of Miss Thompson's harsh words and actions. But instead of letting them define him, he's learning to process them. Therapy has been a huge help, giving him tools to manage his anxiety and build confidence. Watching him grow stronger has been one of the most rewarding parts of this journey. As for me, I've become more determined than ever to advocate not just for Ethan, but for all children facing similar challenges. This experience showed me how easy it is for kids with invisible illnesses to slip through the cracks. Schools may have policies in place, but without empathy and understanding, those policies mean nothing. So I started volunteering with local organizations that focus on educating teachers and administrators about chronic conditions like diabetes. I share Ethan's story, always keeping his privacy intact, to highlight the importance of compassion and flexibility in the classroom. The ripple effects of our fight extended beyond our family. Thanks to the attention the incident received, several schools in the district reviewed their protocols for accommodating students with medical needs. New training programs were introduced to help staff recognize signs of chronic illnesses and respond appropriately. While these changes won't erase the past, they offer hope for the future, a future where fewer families will have to endure what we went through. Of course, none of this means I've forgotten about Miss Thompson. Knowing she's still teaching somewhere leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. But her actions, while devastating, ultimately sparked meaningful change. Without her negligence, we might never have realized how broken the system was, or how much work needed to be done to fix it. In a strange way, she became the catalyst for progress, even if she didn't intend to. Looking back, I see this chapter of our lives as both a tragedy and a triumph. It forced us to confront fears we never imagined facing and tested our strength in ways we couldn't have predicted. But it also brought us closer together and taught us the value of standing firm in the face of adversity. There were days when giving up seemed easier, but pushing forward reminded me of something important. Every battle fought for your child shapes them into the person they're meant to become. And so, as we move forward, I carry two truths with me. First, the world isn't always kind, but kindness is worth fighting for. Second, no matter how hard things get, love and determination can overcome almost anything. Ethan may carry the weight of his illness for the rest of his life, but he'll also carry the knowledge that his voice matters and that he has people who will always stand by him. Because sometimes the hardest battles yield the greatest victories. And though the road ahead will have its bumps, I know we're ready to face them together. This entire ordeal taught me lessons I never expected to learn. First and foremost, it showed me the power of advocacy and how critical it is to stand up for your child, even when it feels like you're fighting against the world. Before this happened, I thought that trusting teachers and school staff was enough. I assumed they would always act in the best interest of their students. But now I know better. Trust is important, but blind trust can be dangerous. Being a parent means asking questions, speaking up, and refusing to back down when something doesn't feel right. One of the hardest truths I learned is that systems designed to protect children aren't always perfect. Schools are supposed to be safe places where kids can grow, learn, and thrive. But sometimes those systems fail. Whether it's due to ignorance, apathy, or outright negligence, adults in positions of authority don't always prioritize what's truly important. That's why parents have to step in, not because we want to, but because we have to. No one else will fight for our children the way we will. Another lesson came from the overwhelming support we received from strangers. When I posted about Ethan's situation online, I wasn't sure what to expect. Maybe a few sympathetic comments or suggestions at best. Instead, I found myself flooded with messages from people who cared deeply about making things right. Some shared stories of similar struggles with schools or educators. Others offered advice on navigating the system or connecting with organizations that specialize in supporting families dealing with chronic illnesses. The outpouring of kindness reminded me that there's strength in numbers, and that change often starts with collective voices. Through all of this, I also learned the importance of educating myself. After the incident with Ms. Thompson, I joined several parent support groups for families managing type 1 diabetes. These communities became lifelines, offering practical tips on everything from meal planning to advocating for accommodations at school. They connected me with resources I didn't even know existed, like templates for creating detailed care plans and guides for explaining diabetes to teachers and classmates. Armed with knowledge, I felt more confident stepping into meetings with school officials or addressing concerns with new teachers. But perhaps the most profound lesson was about resilience, not just mine, but Ethan's. Watching him navigate this experience changed the way I see him. He's stronger than I ever realized, despite everything he went through. Ms. Thompson's dismissive attitude, the anxiety of not knowing whether he'd be believed. He kept moving forward. He adapted, grew, and found ways to reclaim his confidence. It made me proud in ways words can't fully capture. That said, the emotional toll of this experience was undeniable for both of us. There were nights when I lay awake, replaying every interaction with Ms. Thompson in my mind, wondering if I could have done something differently. Should I have escalated things sooner? Been more assertive during meetings? The what-ifs haunted me, but over time, I came to accept that I did the best I could with the information I had. And honestly, no matter how much preparation or planning you do, some battles catch you off guard. For Ethan, the road to healing took longer. Even after switching to Mrs. Peterson's class, he remained cautious around authority figures. He second-guessed himself more than he used to, questioning whether his needs were valid or if he was being too demanding. Therapy helped, a lot, but progress wasn't linear. Some days, he bounced back to his old self, full of energy and laughter. Other days, he seemed weighed down by memories of Miss Thompson's harsh words. As his mom, seeing him struggle was heartbreaking, but it reinforced my belief that patience and love are key to helping kids heal. Looking back, I realized this experience reshaped not only how I approach parenting, but also how I view the world. It opened my eyes to the challenges faced by families dealing with chronic illnesses and the gaps in understanding that still exist within institutions like schools. It motivated me to become an advocate, not just for Ethan, but for other kids who might not have someone willing to speak up for them. Because here's the thing, standing up for your child isn't just about protecting them in the moment. It's about setting a precedent, showing them that their voice matters and that they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. It's about teaching them that while life may throw obstacles their way, they have the strength to overcome them. and they'll never have to face those challenges alone. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, a day that started like any other, but ended up etched into my memory forever. I was at home, folding laundry and half listening to the hum of the washing machine, when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was Ethan calling me from the school nurse's office. Normally, seeing his name pop up wouldn't have alarmed me. He occasionally needed reminders about snacks or insulin doses, but something in his voice stopped me cold. "Mom." He choked out, barely able to speak through sobs. "Miss Thompson threw away my juice box, and she said I'm faking being sick." My heart sank. Juice boxes weren't just snacks for Ethan. They were emergency supplies. If his blood sugar dropped too low, drinking juice could save him from passing out or worse. Without it, he was in real danger. My mind raced as I tried to process what he was saying. How could anyone throw away something so vital? "I'm coming," I told him firmly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "Stay with the nurse, okay? Don't leave her side." The drive to the school felt like an eternity. Every red light seemed to stretch longer than the last, and my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. By the time I arrived, I was shaking, not just with anger, but with fear. Fear for my son's safety and disbelief that this could happen in a place where he was supposed to be protected. I didn't bother checking in at the front desk. Instead, I marched straight to Miss Thompson's classroom, ignoring the curious glances from students in the hallway. When I pushed open the door, she looked up from her desk, startled by my sudden appearance. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to irritation. "Mrs. Carter," she said coolly, standing up, "what brings you here? What gives you the right to throw away my son's medical supplies?" I demanded, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? That juice box could have saved his life." She crossed her arms, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Your son has been using this condition as an excuse to get special treatment. Today, he claimed he needed a juice box in the middle of math class. I saw through it. Kids like Ethan need boundaries, not coddling." "Kids like Ethan," I repeated, stunned. "He has type 1 diabetes. It's not something he can fake." She rolled her eyes dismissively. "If he's really that sick, maybe he doesn't belong in a regular classroom." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was she serious? Did she honestly believe a child with a chronic illness didn't deserve the same opportunities as everyone else? The audacity of her statement left me speechless for a moment, but only for a moment. "You're telling me," I said slowly, enunciating each word, "that you knowingly threw away medicine that keeps my son alive because you thought he was lying? Do you even understand what you've done?" "It wasn't medicine," she snapped. "It was a juice box. He can survive without it." "No, he can't," I shot back, my voice cracking under the weight of my frustration. "Low blood sugar can lead to seizures, unconsciousness, or worse. You put his life at risk today, and for what? To prove some twisted point about discipline." By now, several students had gathered near the doorway, whispering among themselves. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed confused. A couple of them glanced at Miss Thompson with wide eyes, clearly shocked by the confrontation unfolding before them. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned back against her desk, crossing her arms again. "I won't tolerate disruptions in my classroom," she said firmly. "If Ethan wants to act like a normal student, then he needs to follow the rules like everyone else." "Normal?" I echoed, my voice trembling. "There's nothing normal about dismissing a child's health condition. This isn't about rules. It's about basic human decency. How dare you treat him this way?" For the first time since our conversation began, Miss Thompson faltered. She uncrossed her arms and took a step back, her confidence wavering ever so slightly. But she quickly recovered, plastering on a smug smile that made my blood boil. "If you have a problem with how I run my classroom," she said, her tone icy, "perhaps you should take it up with the principal." "Oh, I will," I promised, glaring at her. "And trust me, this isn't over." With that, I turned on my heel and left the room, my fists clenched at my sides. As I walked down the hallway toward the nurse's office, I couldn't shake the image of Ethan sitting there, scared and vulnerable, while this woman dismissed his very existence. The thought fueled my determination. Whatever it took, I vowed to make sure no child ever had to endure what my son went through that day. After leaving Ms. Thompson's classroom, I headed straight to the principal's office. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, fear, frustration. But I forced myself to stay focused. This wasn't just about me or Ethan anymore. It was about making sure something like this never happened again. If Ms. Thompson could treat my son this way, who's to say she hadn't done the same to other kids? The thought made my stomach churn. The school secretary looked up as I entered, her smile faltering when she saw the expression on my face. "Can I help you, Mrs. Carter?" she asked cautiously. "I need to speak with Mr. Dawson," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "It's urgent." She hesitated for a moment, but must have sensed the seriousness in my voice, because she picked up the phone and dialed his extension. A minute later, I was ushered into his office. Mr. Dawson, a tall man with graying hair and a kind demeanor, stood up to greet me. "Mrs. Carter, what brings you here today?" I took a deep breath, clutching the folder I'd brought with me. Inside were Ethan's medical records, the care plan provided by his doctor, and notes detailing everything that had happened since the start of the school year. "Mr. Dawson, I'm here because of Ms. Thompson. She threw away my son's emergency juice box, a critical part of managing his type 1 diabetes, and accused him of faking his illness." His eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "Ethan called me from the nurse's office today, upset and scared. He told me exactly what happened. And this isn't the first time she's dismissed his condition. She's refused to let him check his blood sugar during class, taken away his glucose meter, and implied that he's using his illness as an excuse for attention." Mr. Dawson frowned, leaning back in his chair. "That's troubling. I'll look into it immediately." "Look into it," I repeated, struggling to keep my voice steady. "With all due respect, sir, this is a serious matter. We're talking about a child's life. Ethan's health depends on being able to manage his diabetes properly. Throwing away his supplies isn't just negligent, it's dangerous." He nodded slowly, clearly realizing the gravity of the situation. "You're absolutely right. I'll speak with Miss Thompson as soon as possible. In the meantime, please know that your concerns are being taken seriously." As relieved as I was to hear that, I knew speaking to the principal wasn't enough. This needed broader attention. That evening, after putting Ethan to bed, I sat down at my computer and typed out a post for Reddit's r/ entitled People Forum. I poured my heart into it, describing everything that had happened: the dismissive comments, the thrown-away juice box, the outright denial of Ethan's needs. I didn't name the school or Miss Thompson directly, but I included enough details to paint a clear picture. Within hours, my post blew up. Comments flooded in from parents, teachers, and people who simply couldn't believe what they were reading. Some shared their own stories of dealing with unsupportive educators. Others offered advice or words of encouragement. One commenter suggested reaching out to local news outlets, while another recommended contacting the school board directly. The support was overwhelming and empowering. For days, I felt powerless, like I was fighting against an immovable system. But now, I realized I wasn't alone. There were hundreds of people standing behind me, ready to amplify my voice if necessary.